We need to talk about the mark of the beast. While there are countless opinions and ideas out there about what the mark is, this is mine. I'm going to try to show you how I came to this conclusion and why it is extremely important right now to be watching out for it. To give a baseline, I'll just remind you of how the Bible describes the mark of the beast in Revelation 13:16 through 18. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he had the mark, or the number of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let he that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. You think I'm going to say the he being referenced here is the Antichrist, right? I'm not. Here's why. The chapter is very clear about who gives the mark, and it is not the Antichrist. It is also very clear that there are two characters here, the first beast and the second. The first beast, also called the beast of the sea, is the one associated with the Antichrist system, but I'll get to that in a second. The second beast, the beast of the earth, the false prophet system, also called the Alliance, is the one that gives the mark. If we take it back to verse 11, this becomes even clearer. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, and he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him. The idea that the mark of the beast is this ambiguous form of technology that somehow tracks your every movement better than a phone or a Fitbit, or lets you pay without using cash like Apple Pay, or has facial recognition software like they already do in China and in some US cities, and is given by a human Antichrist, is a Jesuit idea popularized by the media. For example, Season 8 of popular television series American Horror Story depicts a character as the Antichrist. The characters even quote incorrectly from Revelation 13 verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. They somehow think this refers to a single person. Specifically a human person.
But it is going to bother you because you're human, and I was human.
This scene represents the misinformation believed by Christians and non-Christians alike. That verse describes the first beast, the beast of the sea, the Antichrist system, and the spirit of Belial and his many armies. But that beast is not the one responsible for the mark. In American Horror Story, this Antichrist character even has a suspicious 666 scar behind his ear, which, as I've shown you, or if you've read in your own Bible, is completely inaccurate and only perpetuates this lie. The idea that there is an individual Antichrist is the most popular idea, but what is popular does not equal what is true. That idea is followed by the Antichrist being the personification of evil. So like just some random ambiguous form of evil, maybe in nature, maybe in humans, we just don't know. Then finally, a character of history that has already lived and died. We know the Bible references 2 beasts in Revelation 13. These are conglomerates of 2 distinct agendas. Magic describes these agendas as right-hand or left-hand path, dark and light, bad and evil. Notice I didn't say good and evil. To those who hold the belief that a single man will arise and somehow desecrate a temple and claim that he is God and be worshipped by the whole world, I want to ask you, how could one man match the deep state, the cabal, and the elite who have almost complete control over all forms of media? And because of this, they convince us that we are the problem so that we divide ourselves and fight each other, and never learn the truth of who rules over us. Money in America is controlled by a private central bank, the Federal Reserve. The road to complete control has not been short or easy. It's been inching its way forward for millennia, since before the flood and then after the days of Nimrod. Now we're at the final phase, moving past the transition from the first beast to the second, and into the total control of this second beast. How can a single man that is to come somehow be worse than the first beast system that runs the world on the blood of human trafficking, drug trafficking, satanic ritual abuse, pagan idolatry, slavery, and the strategic rejection of truth? So one man is somehow going to be more blasphemous to God than the world that we live in? A world with Shiva the Destroyer at CERN, a woman riding the beast at the EU headquarters, the demonic statue behind the Pope's throne, the Statue of Liberty, which is Saint Germain or the Lightbearer, Prometheus, who is a fallen angel at Rockefeller Plaza, Bohemian Grove Owl, which is Moloch or Minerva, the Goddard Tunnel opening, Georgia Guidestone's depopulation agenda, Egyptian obelisks, which are monuments to Osiris, as well as countless other occult symbols, mega rituals like 9/11, we have Pizzagate, trauma-based mind control, eugenics, elite bloodlines. The list goes on. Another reason the Cabal is Antichrist is because they are literally Antichrist. They They follow the rules and the laws of the Babylonian Talmud, which is the most antichrist book in existence. The only ones who believe in a future antichrist evil man are the ones who don't see the reality of the world we live in. Another reason the Antichrist as a man became so popular was because of a book series called Left Behind, written by Freemason Tim LaHaye, who also popularized the idea of a rapture. The entire rapture doctrine is unbiblical, and is not what the Word of God tells us is in store for the world at these end times. The doctrine is supported by distortion and misinterpretations of what the Bible really says. This is a very big topic that I will probably cover in another video. If you get your theology from Tim LaHaye, that's like getting your news from Alex Jones. Anytime an RFID chip is mentioned, people scream Mark of the Beast. Throwing out the phrase the Mark of the Beast cheapens the massive and worldwide event that is going to be the true mark. Based in biblical truth and actual historic events leading up to a worldwide currency reset. People usually conjure up ideas like one day the entire world is just going to turn upside down and everyone is suddenly going to know that it's the end. But we don't live in a movie. Everyone missed Jesus because they were looking for a king, someone worthy of being the Messiah. And looking for a sign that says 666 in the form of some sensational technology is not rooted in our reality. In our mundane world, a new quantum financial currency reset would be that neon sign.
One of the things that I learned from whistleblowers from the Cabal itself is that they have to work within something they call the rules. And this is very, very important. So I really want to make sure that this gets into the film. The rules are a body of spiritual principles that they must follow in order to be allowed to exist. Now, what do I mean by allowed to exist? I mean that they are aware that there are benevolent forces that will prevent them from achieving their goals unless we give them permission to enslave us.
Regardless of what you think about David Wilcock, the universal laws are true. Malevolent forces, or fallen angels, and disembodied spirits of Nephilim, or demons, cannot do anything without our consent or that is outside of prophecy. This is why prophecy is so subjective. If there were too many specifics given, instead of parables to be interpreted at the correct time, the malevolent forces would be locked into fulfilling prophecy in one specific way, which suggests a deterministic God, which could not be farther from the truth. Prophecy works like a hurricane spaghetti model. Certain paths merge into one based on decisions made by us humans, presented to us by the principalities of the air, and executed by the wicked who hold positions of power. The idea of a worldwide RFID chip being forcefully implanted into every single individual does not even follow the very laws that the Dark Cabal must follow. Besides, say for some reason that were to happen, what system does the RFID chip run on? How is it different from your IP address, your cell phone, your bank account? How does it work to connect all people in all places? You see, the chip itself is superfluous when you take it to its logical conclusion. There must be a system behind its operation, something revolutionary that has never happened before, like a new quantum financial system. So here we go. What my opinion on what the Mark of the Beast will be is the worldwide quantum financial reset, also called NASARA. NASARA began with Saint Germain, and if you haven't already, check out my video, The Saint Germain Deception, to understand why this particular entity is so important and how this event has been in the works throughout all of history. I will leave a link in the description below. But as a reminder, Saint Germain is part of the New Age belief system, but he is actually quite ancient. He is also said to be an ascended master. A better description of him is the fallen angel we call Lucifer, whose real name is Gadrael. The Book of Enoch references Gadrael and calls him the angel who deceived Eve in the Garden of Eden. It's been documented that in 1729, Saint Germain was busy working on establishing and funding a world trust. The Saint Germain World Trust contains the majority of the wealth that will be distributed to the world once the new financial reset takes place. Saint Germain's World Trust Prosperity Program is also known as NASARA and GESARA. NASARA stands for the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, and it applies only to the United States, while GESARA, the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act, applies to the rest of the world. Saint Germain specifically stated that the money in his world trust would be used in the future for prosperity and humanitarian purposes. For centuries, elite families who follow the light, or the agenda of the second beast, have been contributing to this world trust. And now, after 250 years of compound interest, Saint Germain's world trust is over $1 quattuordecillion. That is one with 45 zeros behind it. The reason there is an American program and a worldwide program is because that America determines to a large extent what happens in the rest of the world. And the US was none other than Saint Germain's own Masonic experiment. The United States will also be the first country to distribute the prosperity funds. NASARA was secretly passed by Congress on March 9th of 2000. And the military forced Bill Clinton to sign it into law. Pay attention, the military, the ones behind the entire Q movement and part of the beast system, forced Clinton, a dark Kabbalist of the first beast system, to sign this. GESARA was inserted into the Paris Agreement that was signed into law in 2015. Now, Trump did take the US out of the Paris Agreement because America is not part of GESARA. We have NASARA, the version specific to the USA. As a program, NASARA can be viewed from several perspectives. The New Age says that NASARA is a spiritually directed financial program and traces back to the work of Saint Germain. It was designed to provide a new economic system for the world during the time of transition. The transition they mention is happening now, with Trump, the White Hats, and Q eliminating the cabal or the deep state and draining the swamp. The power is shifting from the dark cabal or the Antichrist system to the alliance or the false prophet system. From the first beast to the second beast, or as Q always says, from dark to light. However, this is only the false light masquerading as the real thing. As a side note, a prophet is someone who predicts the future. A false prophet is someone who predicts a false future. Promising humanity a glorious future after the cabal is taken down is a false future. The New Age says that this time of transition is from the Piscean Age to the Age of Aquarius. Now, Saint Germain says that he is the teacher of the Aquarian Age. Unfortunately, he will never get to have his own millennial reign after this financial reset because he is Lucifer and this is the mark. It is literally the last prophecy before Jesus' physical return. The World Trust was supposed to be distributed to the world at the beginning of what Saint Germain called Christendom's second millennium, or the year 2000. But as Y2K got closer, it became clear that the Dark Cabal who controlled the world was not about to let this happen. NASARA was due to be announced September 11th, 2001 at 10 a.m. But the Cabal blew up the World Trade Center buildings to prevent it. The gold which backed the new currency was stored in the World Trade Center towers and was stolen by the Cabal. This is an example of how the hand of prophecy can never be forced. While we were in the end times, the 7-year tribulation hadn't started yet. There were more prophecies to be fulfilled. Humanity as a collective had to agree to certain spiritual tests given to us by the principalities. The Hurricane Spaghetti model of possible prophetic outcomes still had too much uncertainty of what humanity would spiritually agree with or consent to. And we now see a record number of people claiming to be spiritual, yet rejecting Jesus. 2 Timothy 3:5 says, having a form of godliness, but denying the power of thereof. The faction behind NASARA consider themselves to be working for the light, or the system that is against the cabal. But remember that whole thing, how there's not bad versus good, but bad versus evil? Just because the false prophet system is taking down the Antichrist one does not mean that the false prophet is good. The ones behind NASARA are now working with Donald Trump to bring about this new financial system. Most of the people working to defeat the cabal and end the Fed are in the military. Since NASARA failed in 2001, they decided there was no sense in implementing it before the dark Kabbalists were removed from power, which is exactly what Donald Trump and Q are doing, along with the help of other alliance countries like China and Russia, along with many others. They are now in line with prophecy. Besides, the New Age claims that the most recent incarnation of Saint Germain is Donald Trump. The time has almost come to release the prosperity funds from Saint Germain's World Trust, because those who control the monetary system are no longer in control. NASARA forgives credit card, mortgage, and other bank debt due to illegal banking and government activities. It abolishes income tax, abolishes IRS, creates flat rate, non-essential, new items only sales tax revenue for government, increases benefits to senior citizens, returns constitutional law, establishes new presidential and congressional elections within 120 days after NASARA's announcement, monitors elections and prevents illegal election activities or special interest groups, creates a new U.S. Treasury currency or rainbow currency backed by gold, silver, and platinum precious metals. It initiates new U.S. Treasury bank system in alignment with constitutional law, eliminates the Federal Reserve System, or ends the Fed, restores financial privacy, retrains all judges and attorneys in constitutional law, seizes all aggressive U.S. government military action worldwide, establishes peace throughout the world, initiates first phase of worldwide prosperity distribution of vast wealth which has been accumulating for many decades, releases enormous sums of money for humanitarian purposes, enables the release of new technologies such as alternative energy devices. NASARA and GESARA will create an entirely new system of worldwide currency that is transparent, backed by gold, not governed by bankers, and runs on the blockchain. an unhackable, ledger-driven accounting of every transaction ever made, which offers transparency and privacy and is 100% traceable. And blockchain is not just for money. It also eliminates the possibility of voter fraud and all illegal activity like that of the dark web. Even though the United States was on a gold standard before President Nixon took us off of it in the 1970s, this time is different. Nixon took us off the gold standard in order to create debt and make the Federal Reserve more powerful. The new gold is not coming from the Fed or any country's central bank, but from St. Germains World Trust. This has never happened before. NASARA will be used to buy out all countries, oil corporations, banks, pharmaceutical cartels, and zeroes out all of their debt. Once all of those levels are paid out, the remaining funds will be distributed to the people. In my opinion, before these funds can be accepted, each person will have to make some sort of pledge to use this new money for humanitarian purposes, or make some sort of oath to humanity. Oh hey, would you look at that, the Illuminati already has a blueprint. Upon this eternal oath, I freely pledge to dedicate my mind to the discovery of knowledge, to dedicate my soul to the pursuit of enlightenment, to dedicate my efforts to the progress of abundance, to dedicate my existence to bringing all people and all places into unification, and to dedicate my life and days upon this planet to the protection and advancement of the human species. Swearing an eternal oath doesn't sound that bad, right? James 5:12 says, "But above all things, my brethren, swear not. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all." Right? The people of the United States are the ones most in danger for accepting these funds, or the mark of the beast, because they may not realize that in just a few days or weeks, after NASARA goes into effect, the entire world will be on the same system. All banks worldwide will be forced to announce GESARA, the new quantum financial system, and bank debt forgiveness a few days or weeks after NASARA's announcement. They call it a one-time jubilee, or canceling of debt, which is a strictly Hebrew idea. Why is everything associated with this reset based on biblical terms? Forgive us our debt as we forgive our debtors? It's almost as if they're trying to deceive even the elect. In the US, there will be a grace period when your Federal Reserve notes will be accepted and taken out of circulation. But after that time, only the new currency will be accepted. In other words, you won't be able to buy or sell without it, just like it says in Revelation 13:17. The reason this new money backed by gold is so important is because of King Solomon, which was one of St. Germain's incarnations. In other words, Solomon was one of the most influential alchemists, occultists, and was guided by none other than Lucifer himself. Revelation 13:18 says, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And we see that in 1 Kings 10:14, "Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold." With all of this information, Revelation 13:18, which says the number of the beast is the number of a man, or Solomon, and his number is 666 in gold. Hopefully, my opinion is starting to make sense now. God gave us all the information we need to decipher the Bible within the Bible. In other words, the Bible cross-references itself. With some study and research, the parallels and warnings about Solomon can be found in many other places of the Bible, such as 2 Chronicles 9:13. God does not repeat himself without reason. We need to heed his warning. So in conclusion, don't take the money. Don't rush into accepting this currency revaluation. If you believe this to be the mark as well, you must also believe that Jesus is returning anytime thereafter. Since we are at the end of the tribulation, watching for the last prophecy, Jesus will return before whatever grace period runs out for trading in your cash and taking notes, tokens, rainbow currency, cryptocurrency, or taking this new form of currency. Don't buy into the fear and don't buy into the hype, the public shame, possible financial difficulties, the group mentality, or let the love of material things confuse you into thinking that this is something good that you want or that you need to have. The reason the verse says that he causes all, not forces all, is because of posts like this and this. Who wouldn't want to be free from debt and be rich? Yeah, no one, because that's exactly how our world has been conditioned to operate. Matthew 6:24 says, "You cannot worship God and money." Note that the older versions say mammon. Mammon was the demon over greed and money. You guys ever seen a hearse followed by a U-Haul? Yeah, none of this stuff here matters. Like Matthew 6:19 says, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." This is the final test. Who do you trust? Who do you believe? Mark 10:24. How hard is it for them that trust in riches to enter into the kingdom of God? God is not the God of this material world. John 18:36. My kingdom is not of this world. The mark is what separates you from God because God promises nothing material at all. It's your works, your right hand, and your thoughts, your forehead, or if you want to get technical, the pineal gland, that show where your allegiance is. Are you focused on Him, or are you still in love with the things of this world? 1 John 2:15, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. Notice how NASARA and all the new stuff promised by this false prophet system is the same scenario that played out in Matthew 4:8, when Jesus was tempted by Lucifer with all of the kingdoms of the world. All this I will give you, he said, if you will bow down and worship me. We will be presented with the exact same proposition, and we should answer just like Jesus did. Get behind me, Satan. Bottom line, don't fall for the hype. If it's too good to be true, it's probably the mark of the beast. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below. Thank you guys for watching this video.
Revelation 13:18. Hode he Sophia Esten ha echon nun psephisato tan arithmon tu theriu arithmaskar anthropu Esten kai ha arithmas autu hexakasioi hexakanta hex. Translation: here is wisdom. In other words, in this situation that we're talking about, wisdom is required. Then we have this imperative, psephisato, right? Psephisato. Let him calculate. Let him enumerate. This is from the verb psephizo, which means to calculate or to number. You can see we have a sigma there. We have an alpha. This form here is an aorist active imperative, third person singular. He must calculate. Let him calculate. And the subject of this third person imperative is right here, this substantive participle, the one having a mind, that is, the one having understanding. Let him calculate the number of the beast. For, and there's sort of an impersonal subject here, for it is man's number, or the number of a man. There's some debate here, is it referring to humanity in general or a specific human person? You can see the commentaries for that, but it is the number of a man, or perhaps it is man's number in the sense of humanity's number. And his number, and there's an implied to be verb here, his number is 666. Of course, there's a lot of debate on what this means throughout church history. Does this refer to humanity in its fallenness, which finds its representative in this Antichrist figure, or does it refer to the historical person, perhaps of Nero, the numerical value of his name transliterated from Hebrew, or is it Nero as representative of an end times figure, or Nero representative, kind of a timeless, really representing rebellion against God and his people and through political means? I will let you study the commentaries and think about that question.
mystery that intrigues me is the possibility that Shakespeare's papers, if he was written by Sir Francis Bacon, might reside, might be buried somewhere. What do you think about that and his papers? And I mean, that's almost unanswerable.
What you see here a lot is somebody reaches a theory with plausibility, and then everything they find from then on fits it. The possibility of such, I find it elegant and intriguing and romantic, right? It's certainly a puzzle that continues in the academic world. And was Shakespeare Shakespeare? Was it Sir Francis Bacon who authored the folio? I don't know that. I've said it around this table many times, and we each have articulated why we're here, why we're interested. For me, this is every bit a search for the truth, no matter where it goes, as it is a search for treasure.
That's fascinating. Anybody else with that?
Yeah, and Bacon was famous for experimenting with preserving documents with mercury. And this year we found that in the swamp there's an high content of mercury.
Not only that, but we did pull up parchment and bookbinding, which is evidence that there's something written down in the ground and it was put on parchment, and they could be the Baconian documents.
That's fascinating.
You exactly want reading a book at 180 feet in the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Parchment's a weird thing to drop, and then that's not even what they were looking for when they discovered it.
All inexplicable mysteries. I take it you had it analyzed as best you could.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely
That would be
parchment,
fine.
but we don't have evidence, hard evidence, of there being treasure. There just is a bunch of clues that allude to, of course there's something there. You know, you got booby trap systems that are guarding bits of parchment down in the ground.
Why was it booby trapped?
Only those worthy would find it, or entitled, perhaps.
It was meant to be found. It was meant to be found. A lot of people come here with the intention of finding something material.
Right? I mean, I was drawn here by gold bars.
How great.
Yep. Like David. But, I mean, the original manuscripts of Shakespeare, I'd do. That would do, you know.
But if Francis Bacon wrote it and put it here, what a fascinating thought that is.
And it would be really cool for us to say we brought home the bacon.
Are the lost manuscripts of William Shakespeare or those of Sir Francis Bacon really hidden somewhere at the bottom of the Oak Island swamp? And if so, could they be buried alongside other incredible treasures, like the fabled Ark of the Covenant? Perhaps the Laginas and their partners will soon find the answers, and hopefully they will also avoid a deadly curse, one that so far claimed the lives of 6 men, and a legend that says one more will have to die before the treasure can be found. If you'll excuse me, I think it's time to get